Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is David Wardrelli. I'm joined by Harmon Dial. It is episode 736 of Canucks Conversation.
737.
That wasn't updated in the show sheet.
Jet. Was it not?
Nope. I'm just joking.
I'd like to just believe quads can't count.
Oh, no, it absolutely is. I'm staring at 737 in our planning sheet right now.
You just changed that. I swear you just changed that.
No, that's been changed since this morning.
All right. Took a couple seconds to update for me. But anyways, episode 737 of Canucks Conversation as we hear early from technical producer Jacob Lazar. Lots to get to today, as I say every day. Dave Hall is going to join us later in the show. And honestly, I'm going to, pull back the curtain a bit. I'm really hoping I actually told Jeff that he's Thursday, because we were going to have Dave yesterday and Jeff today. We moved Dave to today. I don't know if I told Jeff that he's Thursday, but usually he'd be here by now. So as long as he's not here sitting in the background waiting to come on, I think we're good. I think we're in the clear. So Dave Hall is going to join us, folks. If you're in the YouTube live chat, get us your questions for Dave. There's some already in the chat. We're going to ask them to Dave. It's our Ask Dave segment. We love doing it. Dave Hall, Canucks Army's prospect guy, is going to join us in a matter of moments. But before he does that, I want to tell you about our Super Chats. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Harm, news of the day. Filip Hronek is back, kind of. He is going to be doing a conditioning stint with the Abbotsford Canucks. That news coming down early this morning from Canucks General Manager Patrick Allvin. Abbotsford plays host to the Henderson Silver Knights Friday and Saturday, assuming he's going to get into those games.
Yeah, and to recap the Hronek situation, on December 3rd, the team announced that he'd be out for approximately 8 weeks. So we're roughly 5 weeks into that timeline. So definitely a little bit ahead of schedule. Now, the interesting thing to keep in mind is that Abbotsford is home through January 18th. Now, the reason I bring that up is I'm curious to see how quickly they actually get him into game action, or how much of this conditioning stint is simply an opportunity for him to practice with Abbotsford in the Lower Mainland area, because obviously Hronek's not on this road trip. He can't practice with the main group. So I'm curious how much of the thought process behind sending him down for this conditioning stint isn't just let's get an opportunity to play games, as much as it is he appears ready to start skating and practicing with a group and with a team, but the Canucks aren't at home and he's not on the road, whereas Abbotsford is. So let's get him an opportunity to work with Manny Malhotra and the staff over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the context matters here a bit too with what Hronek's dealing with. Obviously, there was the shoulder injury. I don't know if we have the video of it, but there was the shoulder injury that he sustained at the end of the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on November 27th. Goes down into the boards, clutching his shoulder collarbone area. The Canucks were very upfront with this one. They told everyone that he didn't get surgery on that, so that needed time to heal. And with that time to heal, they went ahead and got him surgery a lower body procedure on an injury that he had, unrelated to that shoulder injury, but probably something that they may have just waited till the offseason to do, that he probably could have played through and was playing through. But they decided that they were just going to be able to use that time off to get that procedure done. So the reason I bring that up, Harm, is that when a guy's out with an upper body injury, usually means they can keep up their conditioning for the most part. A lot of times it even means they can skate. They can just skate on their own, keep up their conditioning. When it's lower body, usually that comes into question. So I like that they're doing a conditioning stint here. Again, I've seen people saying like, well, I wish Thatcher Demko would have taken a conditioning stint. I wish Dakota Joshua would have. I think it's good that Filip Hronek's getting this conditioning stint. And like you said, I wonder when he's actually going to get into games, because with that in mind, like, I'd be okay if he just went down, practiced, did some conditioning, and he was good to go by the time the Canucks return home. I think that'd be great if they just managed to do that. But he's down in Abbotsford for conditioning.
That's what I wondered too was I don't know what their plan is, but theoretically they could have him just practicing with the team and not even play him in a game. Just because, I mean, you think about the vast number of injuries you see around the NHL. It's not very common that we see players actually, especially high profile ones like Hronek, go down and play AHL games. So I wonder how much of it is simply the practice part of it. And I wouldn't be alarmed if he's not getting into game action. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with conditioning loans are, according to the CBA, both the player and team have to agree to it. So when people were asking about Dakota Joshua and Thatcher Demko and this idea of the Canucks should have sent them down for conditioning stint, the player has a say, and unless he agrees to it, he doesn't have to go down. So this is a case where both the team and Hronek's camp would have sat down, had this conversation, mapped out a plan, and both been on the same page. It's not just a management woke up and figured Hronek was ready for this and was like, pack your bags for Abbotsford. There's clearly some sort of plan put in place. There's also a limit to where it's only supposed to be for 14 days, unless at the end of that 14 days, you can request a short extension of that timeline. But really, it's meant to be a 2-week stint. So I'm curious to see what the actual plan is as far as practices versus is he even going to suit up for a game in Abbotsford?
So you're shooting down the idea of a Hronek and DPD pair, then bring them both up to the big club. That one from Oliver Sholnick in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, I'd call that unlikely. I mean, hey, they could maybe they want to play Hronek for a game or two in the AHL, and maybe they play together in that instance. But yeah, I don't think DPD is going to be coming up with Hronek.
Dave Hall is going to join us in a matter of seconds. And when he does, I'm going to explain to Dave what the Brandstrom bar is. I was texting with him about it this morning. He's ready to go. Let's bring in Dave. I'll start it by talking about the Brandstrom bar, which I'm going to write about soon at Canucks Army. Dave's our prospect guy at Canucks Army. He's got his mic muted right now, but he's about to figure that out. There it is. Dave Hall's our prospect guy. Dave, I was telling you about the Brandstrom bar. And I'm sure you get this a lot, being the guy who actually watches these prospects all the time. Yeah. I invented the Brandstrom bar. I created it, Victory Lap. I created the Brandstrom bar as a way to stop people from asking about prospects being actual call-up options in the sense of, oh, this guy could be the answer for the team. Basically, the basic principle is before you ask about Elias Pettersson or Kirill Kudryavtsev, before you ask about those guys, ask yourself if they're better than Erik Brandstrom. If the answer is no, Erik Brandstrom can't get in the NHL lineup in sheltered minutes right now. Do you really think that those guys are going to come up and do anything other than play extremely sheltered minutes? And are they going to do it better than Erik Brandstrom? If the answer is no, don't ask about them. They're not a viable option. Do you like my theory here? Do you like what I've created?
Well, I like it so I don't have to answer that exact question every single time. And I think it's viable. I mean, you know, like you said, like I was a little shocked. I'm a little shocked that Brandstrom isn't getting in the lineup, especially when Quinn Hughes was out. I mean, you know, with his defensive deficiencies with him, you know, at least he could move the puck. So when Quinn Hughes was out, I was quite shocked. And so I think it's fair. And I think the answer probably is no, to be quite honest with either of them. I think no matter what, even if they were on par, they already have a bit of a shortcoming in the fact that they're 20 years old and haven't played a single NHL game, right? So already they're playing a catch-up game before they even start. So I just think the easiest answer, like I would be much more comfortable, and I've said this many, many times, so I apologize, but I'd be much more comfortable with a Cole McWard coming up. You know, Christian Rolanen. I know there's some waiver stuff with him, but I just think there's probably more options to go with a much more veteran and just an older guy than trying out a rookie at this point in time. Not that I wouldn't love it, and not that I don't think either could probably slide in for a third pairing role right now, whether that's Kudryavtsev or Pettersson. But I just, at this point, I don't see the need for it.
Could McWard cross the Brandstrom bar?
Well, I mean, and opposite to the kids, he's a right shot, so he kind of has that, you know, instant, upper hand and being a right shot.
The Juleson bar.
The Juleson bar. Yes, I've been knocking on this for quite some time. I think McWard should get a game. I don't think you're going to get anything fancy from him, but I just think he's a nice, reliable two-way guy that can move the puck in my opinion, better than Juleson. He's not going to be as physical. In fact, it's one knock that I have on McWard is that I think he probably could stand to be a little more physical, but I just think overall in terms of reliability, I'm still quite shocked he hasn't gotten a game yet.
Shifting to another blue line prospect, but much higher end, Tom Willander, what you make of his performance at the World Juniors, and just big picture as well. Quads and I have been talking about when he does turn pro, is there a possibility that he could, given the state of this blue line, even appear in a few games for the Canucks this season? Where do you stand on not only his World Junior performance, but how quickly he could be a contributor at the NHL level?
Yeah, for starters, I think this World Juniors was, I don't want to be so dramatic and call it a coming out party, but I think it was a real nice eye opener for the fans that don't get to see him on a day-to-day basis. Like I watch him quite often. I see his, I watch his games often. So I've seen the development and the work that he's put into his overall two-way game this summer, and it's been showing all season. And I even put out an article on Canucks Army right before the World Juniors, but even reading that, you still don't get the full sense. So for me, it felt like a bit of a coming out party, and I'm not going to lie, it even shocked me a little bit. I did not expect him to be quarterback power play one, and he came out, and not only was he quarterback power play one, he was the second most utilized player in the World Juniors. And he only had 2 goals, but he rang at least 3 posts, probably could have had a couple more goals if not points. And so just overall, I think it was just a really strong showing from him as one of the better two-way prospects in this game. And I know there's been a little hiccups here or there. Like I came on last year and displayed some of my concerns with some of the offensive side of the puck stuff, the puck handling, the IQ stuff, and those have, I don't want to say completely been mitigated, but or like overturned, but a lot of it's been mitigated, and he's done a lot of great work. And so going with your next question of do I think he's pro ready, I think he's definitely pro ready. I think him sliding into the NHL, and this isn't going to be a shock, I think it's all circumstantial. Like where is this Canucks team in the spring? How far does BU go? I mean, if they make it to the finals, their final game is going to be on April 12th. So there's things like that. And just overall, have the Canucks made any changes to this blue line? If you're asking my opinion on whether I think he could, like I get a lot of comments right now, and they're valid. Should he just decommit right now and come over to Vancouver? And to be honest, I think he probably could. If he wasn't, if the kid didn't want to, like, he obviously, he likes school. He wants to, commit to BU. But if he wanted to, I bet you he probably could come in and be a viable option for their right side. But again, I think it's all going to be circumstantial. And does the club want to rush him? And like, let's put it this way. I don't think you should expect him to come in and play next to Quinn Hughes on that top line. Maybe even not the second line. Like I don't see them really fast tracking his development. But I think if it's a simple yes or no, could he play NHL games? I think the answer is yes.
Okay. On this, Harmon and I have this conversation, and we admit that a big part of this is, okay, well, can he kill penalties? Because that's going to be the value that a guy like Noah Juleson brings. We know he kills penalties. Is he an NHL ready penalty killer, Dave?
I think so. Like the one thing that I loved about his game that he kind of showed in this tournament, as I alluded to, is the second most utilized player. The kid is a gamer. He's always doing what he can to make sure that he's shutting down that offense. Now, the argument isn't very good because Sweden's penalty kill was actually quite poor this year, so it didn't really look good on him as a whole. But I think overall, I think he can play the penalty kill, and but again, right out the gate, I'm not quite sure again for this year. I personally, so I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself. I guess when it comes to that right now, right out the gate, maybe not, but I think long term he's definitely going to be a penalty killer for the team. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Jonathan Lekkerimaki was recently called up, had a great 1-goal, 1-assist performance against the Canadiens. If you look at the Canucks' second half of the season and you were asked over or under 50% of the Canucks' remaining games, will Lekkerimaki be in the lineup for them? Would you take the over? Would you take the under?
Oof. I think I'm ready to take the over. I wasn't even a few weeks ago, and it's funny because he hasn't really been scoring at a high rate. I mean, he only has 3 points in the last 7 games, I believe. So it's not like he's been dominating, but I just think the way that the Canucks as long as they're putting him in that top 6 role, like I love the line that he played for it. Like putting him with JT and Brock is the exact place that he should be playing. And so as long as that's in the cards, I think he should probably stick. And I think as we saw, he can stick. Like he's got that shoot first mentality, which this team needs right now. You know, the team needs just kids that can score. And so I think I'm finally there where I think he's probably ready to take on that full-time role as long as he's going to be placed in a position to succeed.
Dave, some disappointing news for us as content creators. I know you were at Youngstars this year. I'm so glad you got to go to Youngstars, but some disappointing news comes down yesterday. The Canucks will not be having the Youngstars in Penticton due to not being able to secure commitments from the other teams, the Oilers, the Flames, the Jets. We don't know which or how many, but they canceled the Youngstars tournament for next year. It's now a prospect showcase between Seattle and Vancouver. This year's in Seattle. Next year's going to be in Abbotsford. Just your take on Youngstars and what these prospect showcases do for these kids.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a bittersweet. Like I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a fan of it when I first heard the news. I mean, I think Youngstars is such a great event for not only the prospects, for the fans, for the clubs, just for hockey in general, for all these clubs. I think it's a really great event. It's the city of Penticton puts on a great showcase, and that barn is it might as well be an AHL barn almost, right? So I just think overall, it was definitely, I'm not stoked to hear the news, but once I thought about it a bit more, it is nice that they will start to incorporate the Kraken into this sort of prospect thing, and hopefully they can kind of expand to it and maybe include more than just the Kraken in Vancouver. But overall, like I do firmly believe that these prospect tournaments are necessary. I do think it's a really good opportunity for the prospects to come as a whole and just kind of showcase themselves. But I also think that it's really good for them to get that firsthand experience with some of this coaching staff and the Sedins and just all the staff, and just I feel like they take a lot away from it at the end of the day. So I just think overall it's a great way to showcase themselves, and I think it's a great way for the organization to get comfortable with what they have as well. So.
Have you ever taken the ferry to Seattle?
I have, yes. I've taken the Coho. I've taken that quite a few times, but not the Clipper, actually.
I don't know what either of those things mean. You have to show your border before, or your passport before getting on a ferry.
Once you get there, so I take the Coho, so that's the one where you drive on from Victoria, and it takes you to Port Angeles, and then you drive. There you don't show your passport until you get to Port Angeles. I haven't taken the Clipper yet, so that's the one that you walk on, and it fast tracks you right to downtown Seattle. So I haven't taken that one yet,
and you show your passport there too, right?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I don't know whether you do it. You have to regardless. Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know whether it's when you get on or get off. In Port Angeles, it's when you get off.
I'm just curious. It sounds like I'm asking because I'm hoping to get over the U.S. border without showing a passport. That's not why I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't think that's
I was just curious. I was just curious for this tournament and our purposes. Dave, last thing for me, honestly, is just when you look at this Canucks team, the NHL team right now, is there somebody that you look at and say, okay, even if this player isn't across the Brandstrom bar right now, and let's not just limit it to defensemen, are there any prospects / players in Abbotsford, not of the blue chip variety, that you look at right now and say, you know what, maybe this guy could be someone that helps in a few years?
In a few years?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, right off the hop, I mean, the two defensemen, Elias Pettersson and Kuro Kudryavtsev, right off the hop, those are definitely guys that I think will almost guaranteed to at least see NHL games. I think they're both on great trajectories right now. Like Pettersson's playing top line minutes and top line penalty kill. Like he's transitioned as seamlessly as you can imagine. And as of today, he's a AHL All-Star. So, and even offensively, he's right there with, there you go. Even offensively, he's right there with his U21 brass in terms of offensive production. So definitely Pettersson. Kudryavtsev has been super impressive. He's now on the power play working that PP2. His vision. So like he's kind of that more Brandstrom type where, if you're looking for a more dynamic, more visionary kind of player, he's that kid. He's been quite impressive. I do think he might need to put on a little bit of weight, but I think he plays a smart enough game that I think he probably could get away with it. Even if you were to pluck him into a third line role today. And this is me, going down my old road with Ty Mueller, but I think he could eventually kind of like, how I brought up Sasson in the same kind of breath. I think he can probably, eventually work his way toward that third line, fourth line center role. I just think he's just such a reliable two-way guy and has some sneaky offensive some game in there. So I think he's a name to keep out down the line. Definitely not this year, but I think the formers, the two defensemen, are definitely I think I wouldn't be surprised if I saw them in an NHL game at some point this year.
Aatu Räty came out of training camp flying, was one of the biggest surprises for the Canucks. Had a pretty quiet tenure in the NHL. He's been sent down since 10 points in 15 games. I see in a -5, which for a 22-year-old is good, but it's not dominant the way you'd expect from a blue chip prospect. What have you made of his game since he's been down in Abbotsford?
Yeah, I've been left kind of wanting more, and it's almost more because I put him in a bit of a higher regard. Like I don't want to say at 22 as a veteran, but now he's got NHL games under his belt. He's got tons of pro experience. I just at this point I think it's safe that we can kind of expect a little more from him, and we just haven't seen it. He's been fine, but I mean the team as a whole have struggled. They're on their first ever 6-game losing streak, and it's just as a whole it just hasn't been a great stint for most of the team. But he's the kind of guy that you want to be elevating the team when they are going through that slump. Like for Lekkerimaki, he's a 20-year-old who's just coming in he's just getting his first taste of these slumps, and so you kind of give him a little bit of wiggle room. Same with Archie Bains. I've expected a lot more from both him and Räty, just in terms of elevating their game and kind of carrying this team. And we've even seen Räty back on the wing, which is a little bit surprising, especially with Malhotra being, the center guru that he is. I would have expected him to play up the middle, but I think at the end of the day, I think I put him in a higher regard and am expecting a little more from him. And I just haven't really seen it from him so far, at least not what I was expecting from after all that NHL experience. So
Dave, appreciate you taking the time today. People can go check out Blackfish every Tuesday over at Canucks Army. We appreciate you taking the time today. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, happy New Year's to you guys, and happy New Year's, and hope everyone had a good holidays. Same with all the readers and listeners. So thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Cheers. Happy New Year, Dave. Appreciate it. There he is.
Thanks,
Dave Hall. You can read his work over at canucksarmy.com. Yeah, really good stuff. And we didn't even mention when we were talking about news of the day, Elias Pettersson as well, named an AHL All-Star. Gonna be a lot of fun. Do you want to? Oh no, I'll save it. I'll save it for anyone else. We're gonna have a packed anyone else today. But before that, let's preview tonight's game. Let's get into Vancouver versus Washington. Harm. Some notes from morning skate today. Pettersson's gonna be a game time decision. So is Derek Forbert. I don't have any sense. Again, when we were talking about Monday's game, we were like, okay, well, Quinn Hughes practiced. He ran power play 1 on Sunday. He's definitely playing. Pettersson was out for an optional skate today, per Thomas Drance. There were 7 of them on the ice today. I don't have any sense whether or not Pettersson's going to play in this game. We knew Hughes was going to play, but I don't have any idea if Pettersson's playing tonight.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's shifting from Washington's perspective as well. I'm curious to see what they do. Like you mentioned, the notes out of Vancouver's morning skate. I was looking at Washington's situation, and they might be looking to reshuffle their top 6. I don't know if you saw, but Spencer Carberry after skate was saying he's thinking of splitting up Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin off the top line, and was looking at some of the underlying numbers courtesy of the Russian Machine Never Breaks blog. And since Ovi returned from injury, he and Strome have been outscored 4-2 and control 37% of expected goals. So the Caps, they've won 3 of their last 6 games. They haven't been steamrolling the competition the way they have for most of the season so far. And I think they have some uncertainty at the top of their lineup as well. I'm curious to see if Ovi bumps down the lineup a little bit, which is a surprise, because for most of the year, the theme with Washington has been their top 6 has been electric, unstoppable, one of the best in the league.
Yeah, that was going to be kind of what I highlighted when we looked at this game and what the Canucks have on their hands. The Capitals have the 3rd best record in the league, 2nd best by points percentage. Only the Jets and Golden Knights are ahead of them. They have the 2nd highest goal differential in the league. They have the highest number of goals for in the league, it is not going to be easy to take down the Capitals tonight. This is, look, when we were doing our season preview, I don't think either of us, any of us really, had Washington being as good as they are, but they've hit all the right notes. You know what I think of when I look at Washington, Harm, is kind of like last year's Canucks, where they come out of nowhere and surprise everybody, and like, they're where the Canucks were last year, at the top of the NHL standings, and they have that dominant top six, as you just said, something the Canucks had as well, and like they've been getting really good contributions from the back end as well. Jacob Chikrin's worked out phenomenally for them. They've gotten the goaltending quickly on that. Logan Thompson starts in net for them tonight. He's up to a .916 save percentage on the year. He has just 2 losses and 2 overtime losses. 16 wins already for Logan Thompson. He's been phenomenal for them this season. And again, like I said, the defense in front of him has been good, but Logan Thompson starts in net for the Capitals tonight. Kevin Lankinen goes for the Canucks. We'll get an update on Demko in a sec, but this Capitals team, Harm, they are so good. They're just so good.
Yeah, and special teams as well. They rank 4th on the PK, 9th on the power play. You mentioned sort of being similar to the Canucks as far as a surprise breakout team. They're also similar in the sense that they've been riding a little bit of a shooting percentage bender. They are shooting 11.3% at 5-on-5, which is probably going to slow down. And already, compared to the start of the season, their scoring has started to taper off a little bit. Now, they are different in the sense that, unlike the Canucks, their underlying offensive generation numbers are still pretty good. They're a quality over quantity team in terms of their offensive attack, because if you just look at their shot on goal rates, they're around middle of the pack in terms of what they generate offensively, but third best as far as their expected goals for rate. So they're a team that on a night-to-night basis, it's not as if they're piling up 30, 40 shots, but the looks that they do get are typically high quality, and they get a ton of offense from the blue line. They've been really, really good in a lot of different facets. I think that coaching staff with Spencer Carberry also deserves a ton of credit.
Local boy, Spencer Carberry. He's fantastic. He's been great for them. Final thing on Ovechkin and the Capitals from me. Did you catch this? I was watching, or listening to, I should say, The Sheet with Jeff Merrick. And if you haven't checked it out yet, folks, really, really solid show. Really good listen. I heard Jeff talking about how Ovechkin either recently or is going to make the switch. He's using an unbranded stick, which means when he breaks the goals record, in all likelihood, it's going to be an unbranded stick that's going into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I think that's great. I think that's going to be so funny. He's using an all black, just not CCM, not Bauer, just completely unbranded stick to break the goals record. And I think we'll see it tonight. He's using it now, as far as I know. So keep an eye out for that. I think that's a fun little tidbit that I wanted to bring up.
Has he committed to going unbranded for a while, or could this be like I'm going unbranded? So all you hockey stick manufacturing companies, put in your biggest bid. I'm on the market.
Ooh, now you're thinking like owner quads. I do think, just based on what I heard from Merrick in that story, was that the idea was that it's going to be an unbranded stick that goes into the Hockey Hall of Fame when he breaks the record. Everybody's got a price, though. Everybody's got a price. As we learned when we were trying to trade for Noah Dobson and Matt Barzal earlier this week. Another thing from that show with Merrick that I wanted to quickly bring up, just a quick shout out. I don't know if you know the story. This is far before our time, Harm, but it's a story I wanted to kind of parrot a little bit and tell. Merrick told the story. Back when Grant Fuhr was playing, he had a deal with Pepsi, like a brand deal. And I say this a day after we see the new Showdown menu over at McDonald's with Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. I got something on that in anyone else. But Merrick tells this story of Grant Fuhr being sponsored by Pepsi. And at the time, like, it was still a little vague what players could and couldn't do when they were sponsored by companies. And Pepsi and Fuhr's agent worked out a deal for Fuhr to have Pepsi cans as his pads. And the NHL stepped in and said, no, you're not doing that. You can't do that. We're not letting this happen. You can't you can't become a walking billboard. But I do wonder now what it'd be like, because we see ads on the jerseys. And I do wonder, like, you know, could a guy come out with the golden arches as his setup, a goaltender, or something like that? I don't know. I think it'd be funny
I might be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure there is a rule in the rule book about that, and they justify it by saying it's distracting to shooters. Like if you have pads that contain like logos, like brand logos, but like you see guys on pads now putting like, I mean, remember Eddie Lack? He was kind of one of the first ones where he had crazy designs on his pads. So I don't know. You might be onto something, Quads. We might just see a goalie come out randomly with like a massive Ronald McDonald set of pads one day.
Well, the Hamburglar, remember? Andrew Hammond was that advertisement for McDonald's.
I'm pretty sure the CBA has really strict guidelines around sponsorships.
It does. It absolutely does. It does. But I wonder if the door can be opened based on jersey patches and all this stuff.
Do not think so.
I think what makes the Fuhrer story so funny is at the time, I don't think the CBA had rules against sponsorships. I think that was something that was going to happen, and the NHL was like, no, this can't happen, and then they put it in the next CBA, as far as I know.
The owners would want a piece of the pie. They'd be saying, like, come on, the league is putting on the...
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. Can they be a part of it? More advertising.
I hope not, because the last thing anybody wants to see is more advertising. Like, some of these European leagues, the jerseys are so ugly.
Yeah. There's the McDonald's. I don't know if you remember this. This is long. This is an old Canucks conversation poll. But one time we were doing Lucas Forsell highlights, and I think Farstad is his team. They had McDonald's golden arches on their butt cheeks. On the hockey pants, there's two golden arches, one there. And Faber was doing the highlights. He goes, "Look at that shot, double cheeked up with McDonald's," and we lost it for about 3 minutes. We couldn't get our composure back, which is why it's great that we have now very mature co-host Harman Dial on this show to help keep us on the rails. With that in mind, let's get to Anyone Else, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta. Come down to Greta Bar YVR for a thrilling evening presented by Fountain Tired as we watch Vancouver take on Edmonton. There's going to be exciting giveaways, including hockey tickets, signed memorabilia, and jerseys to be won. Doors open at 5 p.m. and puck drop is at 6 p.m. Each ticket grants you access to all the action, and it's all in support of One Broken Biker. Go to nationgear.ca to secure your ticket and take a look at our VIP 4-person reservation. It includes entry into the event, the Greta burger and beverage, plus a game card. You don't want to miss out, folks. Secure your spot now at nationgear.ca for an action-packed night with the Canucks Army crew. Again, that is January 23rd, Vancouver versus Edmonton, 6 p.m. start. It's going to be a ton of fun. We had so much fun at the first watch party of the year. This is the second one. Going to be a really good time. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. Okay, we've got a lot in Anyone Else here. I wanted to start it off with this. I'm not sure if you saw this, Harm. The NHL is going to be hosting 2 outdoor games in Florida. The Sunshine State is getting 2 outdoor games. The first one is going to be on January 2nd. Not doing the 31st, not doing January 1st, hoping that January 2nd is going to be that perfect medium. That's going to be at Lone Depot Park, which is home of the Miami Marlins. There's your baseball talk quota for the day on January 2nd, 2026. Then it's going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning hosting the Bruins at Raymond James Stadium, of course, home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on February 1st, 2026. So Panthers, Rangers, Lightning, Bruins. I'm curious how this is going to go. Obviously, we all remember how it went with Lake Tahoe when the ice started melting in the middle of the game and how much chaos that led to. I'm curious how this is going to work and how it's going to play out. Because as far as I know, and Jacob, you're a football guy. As far as I know Lone Depot has a roof, but Raymond James Stadium doesn't have a roof. They can't really control the climate in there, can they?
Correct. But keep in mind, they had Stadium Series games at Dodger Stadium like 12 years ago, and it was fine. I would imagine they're probably going to play the Tampa one at night to avoid any sun, and then maybe even the Miami one. But yeah, you could also just close up the roof if it's a bright sunny day and the ice starts melting. But it's going to feel different than the Winter Classics we've had in the past.
Okay. And I quickly wanted to mention this. Roberto Luongo, he had some fun with this. I'm not sure if you saw this, Harm, but Roberto Luongo tweeting out, alumni game? Head-to-head versus Henrik Lundqvist like the good old days. What says you? Playing an outdoor game was always a dream of mine. Of course, Roberto Luongo, who didn't get to start that 2014 Heritage Classic game, tweets that out. I love it. I'm curious how these Winter Classics, these outdoor games are going to go. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I also think in general, I don't know if you've noticed this just talking to other friends, people who aren't as diehard and invested in hockey 24/7. But it feels like when the Winter Classic first was an idea, that there was so much hype around it, and everybody knew it was like appointment viewing. There was a lot of marketing around it. Everybody knew. It just sort of feels like over the last few years, especially once they shifted to doing a few of these outdoor stadium games per season, that they just don't have the same allure, the same like, oh, you got to watch this. A lot of times, a lot of times my friends haven't even known that, oh, the Chicago St. Louis one was happening, for example. So the league needs to, I think, shift something, whether it's related to marketing, doing fewer of them to make the ones that they do seem more special. Whatever it is, I don't know that it's attracting the same amount of attention from a growing the game perspective that it maybe was originally.
It's not. It's absolutely not. And everything you just said about your friends not noticing it and everything, I echo all of those things. The first one that I ever really started to really pay attention to and was excited for, like I woke up to watch this one and I was like, this is exciting. I was 11 years old, or maybe I was about to turn 11 years old. The 2011 Winter Classic between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals. If memory serves correctly, that was the game. Maybe that was 2010. I'm not sure exactly when it was, actually. Now I'm doubting myself. But Capitals, Penguins, you obviously had the star power of that game, but that was also the one where I believe it was David Clarkson that delivered a pretty brutal headshot to Sidney Crosby. That was kind of to me at least, that was the height of something needs to change here because we're going to miss out some prime years of Sidney Crosby's career because of stupid headshots from stupid players like David Clarkson. And again, Crosby was getting targeted a lot at that point in his career. He was well on his way to being a Stanley Cup champion. Everyone knew it. Everyone knew that he was going to pick up more than just one. I remember that one. That one stands out the most to me. Was the was that the 2011 Winter Classic, Jacob?
I think so. It was also
2011. And
David Steckel.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Harm. It was David Steckel, not David Clarkson. Clarkson,
sorry for calling you stupid, David Clarkson.
I've actually met David Clarkson. Really nice guy and really intelligent hockey mind.
Now I feel worse.
Yeah. And we do have a super chat, by the way.
Oh, yes, we have a super chat. Okay, let's get to the super chat. This one from Blue Line Bar Down, which actually, the reason I was saving this because I wanted to talk about this. It's a great question. Hronek has to run his own pair at this point, right? As we watch this, and thank you for the super chat in support of the BC Mental Health Foundation, Blue Line Bar Down, and thank you for the great idea, the great talking point, because I wanted to talk about this. As we've watched the Canucks struggle to move the puck out of their own end all season when Quinn Hughes isn't on the ice, as we watched that get much, much worse when Quinn Hughes and Filip Hronek were out, are you at the point as well, Harm, where you look at it and say, like, man, how bad could a Susie Hronek pairing be? Like, the big question is you're taking something away from Quinn Hughes because Quinn Hughes and Hronek are dynamite together, but it feels like a team need right now to have more than just one pairing that can move the puck, and it feels like Hronek can be able to do that on his own.
They need to experiment with it at some point. Maybe not right away.
Ease him back in, sure.
Ease him back in, but at some point soon, especially before the trade deadline, I want to see Hronek get a run and opportunity to drive his own pair. Now there are question marks about whether he can actually do it or not, but we're not at a point right now where we can say definitively, oh, he can't. Right? It's like we don't know because we haven't gotten an extended run of him doing it. Not to mention, I mean, there have been points where for short stretches they went with Susie Hronek mid-game and it didn't look great. But then there was also, let's say, the Ottawa game where Quinn Hughes, because of that hit on Norris, was kicked out with the 5-minute penalty in the game misconduct, and Hronek logged huge minutes and was a monster that game. So yeah, I think he deserves an opportunity to see what he can do because the second pair has been such a black hole for this team.
With that in mind, the only time we've seen him do it this year, he did exceptionally well. If you recall, Quinn Hughes eliminates himself from the game very early against the Ottawa Senators, and I think Hronek went on to play 25 plus minutes that round power play one. Obviously, he's not going to do that if Quinn's around, but like he was playing the big minutes, and I know it was Ottawa, and I know Ottawa was struggling at the time, but we've seen him do it in a small sample size, and I agree with you. Like, start him slow, but let's see what he can do running his own pair, because I think ultimately that's one way that this team can really fortify themselves as they kind of, try to stick around the playoff conversation and not go away and make some noise in the playoffs, right? Is like, you go get a left shot guy and you can play him on a top 4 pairing, and now Carson Soucy's on your third pair, and you've got a Hughes Myers top pairing. Not the best, I get it, but Myers has held up his end of the bargain right now playing with Hughes. And if you take some of that pressure off by having Hronek with a legitimate top 4 left shot guy, you have Soucy playing on the third pair. Like, Soucy's going to excel in those minutes, you would think. So it might change the outlook of the team to have Hronek running his own pair. I love the idea. I hope they do it, and I hope it works. That's the other thing. It has to work. It has to work. It's one thing to say we're going to do this. It's another thing to have it actually work. Let's check out the chat a little bit more. Let's see what else there is. Stephen Wong with a Cap question. He said, does Filip Hronek still count against the Cap while in the AHL for his conditioning stint? I believe the answer to this is no, right?
I'd have to check, but the way that he's designated right now is, according to Puckpedia, he's on LTIR, but the Canucks are under the cap anyway. So it's a situation where Hronek's
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter because they haven't dipped into LTIR anyway.
Okay, this one from JC. In the overall evaluation of a prospect, how much does the World Junior Championship truly contribute? It's a sample. It's a sample, but you have to take it with everything else you've seen from the player. So that's why I respect and listen to when Dave comes on the show earlier and says, this is a good World Junior, but it also is not surprising if you've watched him play at BU when we talk about Tom Willander, which Dave obviously has. He's talked about how the question marks in his game, in Tom Willander's game, have really cleaned themselves up this year, taking a step in your development. It was a conversation we had at the end of yesterday's show as well. So it's something to consider, but as we know this very well in Vancouver, it can't be the reason you draft a player. And it can't be he excelled at the World Juniors, that's why we're going to draft this guy. But when you're evaluating a prospect, it's a piece of the puzzle, is my view of it.
Yeah, small piece of the puzzle. And again, with the Willander story, it's a lot easier to buy that narrative when he's also had a really good collegiate season. Right? It's like that's where it's okay, valid, and you can put a lot more stock into it. Where teams can sometimes run into issues is when a player is, let's say, struggling in league play, but then dominates at these international tournaments, and then they put too much stock into the player's success at the international tournaments. I remember a big part of the story around Vasily Podkolzin in his draft year was he's always looked great for Russia, whether it was at U18 tournaments, mostly at the U18 tournaments. Whenever he was suiting up for Russia in a junior type of setting, he looked fantastic. But when it came to league play, and part of it was related to opportunity, but he wasn't actually producing a lot. And so the reason Podkolzin was a bit of a polarizing prospect in his draft year was that difference between, well, in these shorter international tournaments, he looks dominant. He looks like a guy that should be a top 5 pick even. Whereas his league play would have others thinking that he should be a player that's drafted closer to the mid to late teens.
There's so much in the chat today, and I'm trying to catch up on it all. People are arguing about JT Miller's age, what it actually means for aging curves. We're not going to touch that. We're going to... People are all over the place today. I wanted to get to this. I'm gonna say this. Paul Papadoulis brought this up. Jeremy Hronek was claiming that Connor Bedard disrespected him and the Blackhawks. Is it time to bring him home? First of all, I thought the Jeremy Hronek thing was stupid. And I hope Connor Bedard asks for a trade. I've been saying that for months, though. Get that kid out of Chicago. Awful organization to be a part of. Hope he's able to get out and come home soon.
Yeah, I think you need a new bit, not just owner quads, but Homer quads.
Homer quads.
This is Homer quads speaking up.
How is that Homer quads?
I hope he requests a trade.
No, Harmon really likes Jeremy Hronek, I guess.
Well, Hronek shouldn't have done that, but the whole the trash organization. I hope Bedard requests a trade out. That is Homer quads.
Every organization sucks except for the Canucks. We know this. The one that can't secure a practice facility. That's the only one we're talking about. That's the only one we want to root
Remember
for.
last year when nearly every Bet365 segment you picked the Canucks to win?
I know, and then I that's easy, but I had to stop doing it this year because we did it at the start of the year and they kept losing. So we don't do that anymore. Okay. People in the chat are asking about Nick Pocek, and Nick confirmed it. We've talked about this before, but Nick Pocek's in the chat, and his brother was in the chat yesterday too. They asked if he was related to, what's this guy's name? I know it's Rudy, but what's his? Yeah,
Rudy the Hammer.
The Hammer Pocek, or Pocek. And Nick said, yeah, he's my uncle. 364 NHL games, and he racked up 817 penalty minutes. What a legend.
I had no idea. That is badass stuff.
And you should look at a photo of Rudy Pocek if you have a chance. Just Google Rudy Pocek.
I'm gonna Google it now. I'm expecting some manly facial hair.
Yeah. Well, look, just look. He looks like he would have 817 penalty minutes.
There's like one of the top Google image results. He's playing for Tampa, and he's just got blood all over his jersey. His nose is swollen. This was a man's man hockey player in the 80s and 90s, I'm sure.
Nick, what's the best Christmas gift he's ever gotten you? We want some Rudy Pocek trivia. Also, like, would he want to come on the show? He doesn't have the look of someone that would like talking to us, but I'd love to interview Rudy Pocek. I think that'd be very fun. Have him on the show. We'll talk about it. Harm, did you have anything else you wanted to get to? Final thing for me was Daniel Sprong on waivers today.
Oh wow, I didn't even see that. But no,
yeah. Daniel Sprong on waivers. Canucks get off the contract, and now Seattle is hoping that they can do the same. Tough to win that future considerations trade, but it looks like the Canucks may have pulled it off. By getting off of Daniel Sprong's money. He is on waivers today for the purpose of reassignment to Coachella Valley. There are worse places to get reassigned to, of course. But that's it from me. I got nothing else. If you're good to go with our Bet365 bet of the day.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay, let's do it. Why is it only show? Okay, there we go. All right, had to find it. Yeah, okay, Canucks are underdogs tonight. We're not taking that game. We're not touching that one. I was wrong last night that the Lightning beat the Hurricanes. It was a good game. But tonight, we're going with... I don't like any of these. I don't like these. We're going NBA.
Or someone in the chat mentioned that Quinn Hughes is plus 500 anytime goal scorer today.
I can't bet on Canucks, though.
That's right. Well, but it's an anytime goal.
But won't score and people will blame it on me.
Fair enough.
Nick Pocek said Rudy Pocek, his uncle, bought him an NES when they were brand new. So there you go. Rudy Pocek. Shout out to Rudy Pocek. Good gift giver. Yeah, I don't want to bet on this game. I don't want to touch this game because people don't like it. People don't like when we touch the Canucks game, so we're not going to. What we are going to take is a prop from the Florida Panthers game because it's low stakes for us. We're going to take it. We don't usually touch anything other than money line, but we're going to take Sam Reinhart, local kid, to score. Anytime goal scorer, you can get him at plus 155 odds. We're taking that one over on Bet365. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Right of the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Okay, we will wrap it up there. Thanks again to Dave Hall for joining us on today's show, and thanks to you, the listener, for joining us as well. We'll be back tomorrow to break this one down and talk a whole lot more about them Vancouver Canucks, but we will close it out there. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our producer Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Vergelli. Thanks so much for listening to an episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.